Spare, the amazing Harry's wife. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, continuing my analysis of Spare, but now the Harry's wife edition, as the spider has come along. And now Harry thinks that she's absolutely golden because, unknown to him, he's caught up in the golden period as she is seducing him, wrapping her tendrils about him in the way that the narcissist does when the narcissist first comes along and looks to bring you under control, to suck the fuel from you. Of course, Harry had now decided that they were going to meet up in Botswana. He explains that they couldn't fly together. He was scheduled to be in Malawi doing some conservation work. But the other reason, which he didn't tell Harry's wife, was they couldn't be risked being seen together. So she did her eat, pray, love thing and then flew to Johannesburg and then to Maun, where he'd asked TJ to meet her. And then she had an 11-hour journey, including a 3-hour layover in Johannesburg. Oh, the trauma. And a hot car ride to the house. Apparently she had every right to be grumpy, but she wasn't. Wow, isn't she a saint? Aren't we all so lucky that someone so wonderful walks upon this earth? And he describes that she looks like perfection. Again, Harry's wife ensuring that he reports all of this in a very favourable light. He opened the gate and handed her a chicken sandwich wrapped in cling film because he thought she might be hungry. He said he wished he'd got flowers and something else besides a measly sandwich. And he explained that they hugged. It was awkward because of the unavoidable suspense. He explains that they talked and FaceTimed countless times since our first dates, which shows the hoovering that goes on and the monopolization of his time in classic narcissist fashion as he's brought under control. The repeated attempts to ensure that he succumbs to her control, not only in that moment, but part as an overarching control that she requires of him, because her narcissism has deemed that he would make an excellent intimate partner primary source. So she hoovers, and she hoovers, and she hoovers. And he, unwittingly, because he doesn't know he's dealing with a narcissist, thinks, this is fantastic, she's really interested in me. Then apparently they were both thinking the same thing. Don't know how they would know that, but there we are. Again, Harry's wife's magical thinking coming to the fore. Is this going to translate to another continent? Apparently, the Air Botswana crew were big fans of Suits, so they'd asked her to pose for a photo. Bullshit. They probably have no idea who she was. But again, remember, in the deluded world of Harry's wife, all men want to bang her, all women want to be like her. Everybody knows who she is. So she gets on that plane thinking, oh, they're looking at me because they know who I am. They recognize me. They won't. But of course, her narcissism causes her to believe that that's the case. Harry was thinking, oh dear, if one member of the crew posted that photo, the cat would be out of the bag. They jumped into a 3-bench truck and off they went, looking at various animals. And then, after a while, he held her hand. And then he gave her a kiss. And then their bodyguards pretended not to see. And then the fauna around them began to change. And they saw more animals. And then they saw elephants, a breeding herd of elephants. Dad, mum, babies. Hi, guys. You could imagine Harry, can't you, sort of waving, hi, guys, thinking they're going to talk back to him. Then, apparently, there were lions in the area. And he called for his bodyguard to hit the brakes, and there they saw a lion, a big fella, Daddy, and 4 youngsters lounging under a shady bush with their mums. When he talks about the shady bush, he means actual vegetation and not Harry's wife's ragman's coat. Then they arrive at the satellite camp, and their bags are taken to a bell tent beside a huge sausage tree. I'm not sure if that's foreshadowing what's going to be happening. Harry explains that they're on the edge of a big forest. Harry's wife, who I was now calling Harry's wife, but a shortened version of it, or sometimes just M, was stunned. Then she opened her suitcase. And he thought, here it comes, the mirror, the hairdryer, the makeup kit, the fluffy duvet, the dozen pair of shoes. I was shamefully stereotyping. American actress equals diva. To my shock and delight, there was nothing in that suitcase but bare essentials. A black Mamba vibrator, a pair of handcuffs with fluffy material around the edge, and a copy of Woman's Weekly. Oh, and a yoga mat. Fascinating, huh? And then basically they had something to drink and they told stories and they ate around the fire, and then it was time to go to bed. And she asked, where's the flashlight? And he said, you mean the torch? And they both laughed. Absolutely hilarious, isn't it? Goodness me. And he said the tent was very small and very Spartan, so she was expecting some glamping. She'd be fully divested of that fantasy. Now, understand at this juncture, all of this is rather basic and is not commensurate with what Harry's wife would want. No, not at all. Because, of course, she believes that she should be walking into palaces, etc., because she is a princess. But she's not going to kick off about these things at this juncture. Why? It's the golden period. So basically, where she might be thinking to herself, where she ordinarily, I would say, be thinking to herself, oh, this is a bit shitty, the narcissism goes, no, you can't do that. And instead, what it does is it causes her to think, gosh, this is wonderful, Spartan, back to basics, how I love all of this. And then, of course, in the devaluation, if he were to take her to Africa, or stated that he wanted to take her, her response would be, I don't want to go there. I'm not sleeping in some shitty tent with no amenities. But darling, I thought you loved it first time. Oh, I was just telling you what you wanted to hear, she would say. And that's what confuses people so much, is that all of the stuff that goes on in the golden period, where you're mirrored, where we monopolize your time, where we flatter you and tell you how wonderful you are and like all of the things that you like, it then gets thrown in your face at a later juncture. And you don't understand. You can't work out, but you liked all of those things. Why are you now going against it? We never genuinely liked them. Our narcissism just causes us to look at it favourably in order to make you think that we're amazing so that you come under our control, and as a consequence of that, we're able to draw fuel from you. So it makes us like the things that you like, but we don't genuinely do so. And our narcissism causes us to look at it that way in order to draw you in. So the fact that she packed in a sparing fashion, the fact that she went there in the first place, the fact that she wasn't complaining about the fact that she was getting bitten and that she had to go and piss outside in the bush rather than on a gold-plated toilet, all of that is caused by her narcissism, which is preventing her from going down that route. They were given separate bedrolls. Apparently, TJ didn't want to be presumptuous, and they pushed them together, shoulder to shoulder, and they stared at the roof, listening, talking, and watching moon shadows flutter across the nylon. And then there was a loud munching sound. No, I don't think Harry had got down to a bit of rug munching, but apparently Harry's wife sat up straight and asked, "What's that?" And Harry told her it was an elephant. Perhaps he was going to do his elephant impression of pulling out his pockets and showing off the frostbitten todger. Then there was a loud roar. No, it wasn't Harry feeling randy and doing his mating call. It was lions. She asked, "Are we going to be okay?" And he said, "Yes." She lay down and put her head on his chest, and he said, "Trust me, I'll keep you safe." Which, of course, he would do so as a consequence of his emotional empathy. The next day, he wakes up, tiptoes out of the tent, and goes and watches some of the animals. And then he found her doing yoga on her mat beside the river, of course. Then it was breakfast, and she asked about what they were going to be doing that day. He explained that he got surprises. And then they came upon some giraffes. Then there was a warthog. Then there was some hippos. Then there was some wild dogs. And then he was explaining that it was dry season. The air was warm, clean, a joy to breathe. They had a picnic lunch with some savannah ciders. Then they went for a swim in an estuary, keeping our distance from the crocodiles, being told to stay away from the dark water. He explained that it was the cleanest, purest water in the world because it was filtered by all that papyrus, even sweeter than the water in the ancient bath at Balmoral. But then he thought better not to think about Balmoral because the anniversary was only weeks away. They then turned on music later that evening and sang and ate, and she told a bit about life in Los Angeles. Harry said that he was fascinated, hanging on every word, while in the background I heard a faint drumbeat. She's perfect, she's perfect, she's perfect. This, of course, is demonstrative of the rewriting of Harry's wife and also the infatuation that occurs with Harry as he is being drawn in by her. This, of course, is a consequence of his emotional thinking, that she's mirroring him, being pleasant towards him, no doubt giving him some spicy poontang, although he doesn't mention that in what he's written, which is a surprise. I thought we'd be given all of the details of that. Perhaps, though, there was an analogy there with the elephant munching and the lion roaring. Perhaps that was them getting down to some sexy time. He talks about his supposed Jekyll and Hyde existence. Happy Spike in Botswana, tightly wound Prince Harry in London, and he'd never been able to synthesize the two. But he thought that with this woman he could be, that he would be Happy Spike all the time. But she didn't call him Spike, she called him Haz. And he says that every moment of that week was a revelation and a blessing. But unfortunately, she had to go back, and he had to meet the president of Botswana to discuss conservation issues, and then he was going on a lads trip, which had been months in the planning. He said he would cancel, but his mates would never forgive him. But they then said it was time to go say goodbye, and she began to cry. Pity play. I wonder if it was one tear left eye go. He asked, when will I see you again? And she said, soon. And he said, not soon enough. And she said, no, not nearly. Mills and Boone, of course. And then TJ said that he would take good care of her, last kiss and a wave, and then they were away. And they climbed into his small prop plane, and it broke Harry's heart. Of course, he is, at this juncture, already being drawn in with her tendril sliding around him, and he doesn't realise, as the Ginger Prince is being ensnared. It's all demonstrative of the way that the narcissist ensnares, and it shows the way that he's completely taken in by thinking that she's wonderful, whereas, of course, we have seen all the evidence that demonstrates that she's not, and he latterly has been experiencing the fact that she's not pleasant. Next up, Panic in Africa. Join me and learn more about that.